Welcome back. This is LTC 08 in our long-term care predictability series. Today we're talking about infection prevention by layout. Not infection prevention as a policy binder, not infection prevention as a training reminder. Infection prevention by layout means that the building makes the safer behavior easier. The goal today is to give you practical framework for seeing where a floor plan helps infection prevention, where it fights operations, and where layout decisions create risks for the staff, the residents, the patients, and the schedule. This is for operators, clinical leaders, facilities directors, infection prevention leaders, development teams, and design and construction partners. The stakes are real. If infection prevention is not built into the layout, the staff are forced into workarounds. Clean and soiled flows cross, and supplies end up getting stored in the wrong places. Hand hygiene is too far from the task. Visitors, services, and care routes overlap in ways that no one intended. Then the organization has to solve a layout problem with policy, reminders, and staff vigilance. And that's just not predictable. Here's the predictable failure pattern. A layout is approved because the rooms fit and the code path looks workable. But the infection prevention flows aren't tested. Later, someone realizes that clean supply travels through a conflict zone and soiled return is too far away. PPE staging is missing, or a renovation route cuts through an active care area. Now the team has to fix it late. Sometimes the fix is operational, and sometimes it's signage. Sometimes it's staff training, and sometimes it's a redesign. The earlier you see those risks, the cheaper and the safer they are to solve. The simple model is this. Infection prevention by layout has 5 parts. First, separate risky flows. Second, shorten repeated routes so staff do not have to carry risk through the building. Third, support the task where it happens, especially hand hygiene, PPE, storage, cleaning, and disposal. Fourth, signal boundaries clearly so that staff, visitors, and vendors understand where they should and shouldn't go. And fifth, stress test the layout during the peak moments. A plan that works when the building is quiet may fail during meals, med paths, bathing, laundry, or an outbreak response. The tool for today is the IPLC, or the Infection Prevention Layout Canvas. The point is not to turn every owner into an infection prevention specialist. The point is to help the project team ask better layout questions early. By the end of the worksheet, you should have mapped the infection risk pathways, identified practical layout moves, and traced the major flows, tested the peak moments, and used a go or no-go gate before layout lock. This is an operational planning tool. You confirm all the requirements with your clinical leadership, your infection prevention leadership, your facilities team, the contractor, and the authorities having jurisdiction. Step 1 is the infection prevention risk baseline. You start by naming the resident or patient population. Then name the acuity, which means how much care do people need and how intense is that care for the staff. Then identify known vulnerabilities. Is this a high acuity population? Is there frequent bathing support? Is laundry or soiled return a daily friction point? Is the project a renovation in an occupied facility? Are there outbreak response assumptions that need to be supported? This baseline matters because not every project has the same infection prevention risk. The layout has to respond to the actual operating condition. Step 2 is mapping the infection risk pathways. Don't start with opinions about whether the layout feels good. Start by tracing what moves through the building. The clean supply, the soiled return, the waste and the laundry, meals, medication, staff, visitors. What about construction and service routes, especially if it's a renovation? Then ask where those flows cross. Some crossings may be acceptable with some controls. Some need better separation, and some are no-go crossings that should trigger a redesign. The goal is to make risk visible before everyone gets attached to the plan. The first practical layout move is clean and soiled separation. This sounds basic, but it is one of the easiest things to under-design. Clean supply should not depend on the same route used for soiled return, waste, or construction traffic. Soiled return should not require a long public route or unnecessary travel through clean care zones. When clean and soiled movement is not clear, staff compensate with timing, memory, and extra steps, and that's a policy burden. The better layout reduces the number of moments where the staff have to work around the building. The second layout move is putting hand hygiene and PPE support where the work actually happens. The simple rule is this: the safer behavior should be the easiest behavior. If staff have to leave the care point, cross a route, or improvise storage to access what they need, the layout is creating friction. And this does not mean that every answer is the same. The right move depends on the care model, the room type, the corridor condition, and the operational policy. But the question is always the same. Does the layout support the task the moment that the task occurs? The third layout move is protecting med and meal flow. These are high-frequency operations. They happen every day, and they happen under a time pressure. And they affect the resident and patient experience directly. If med flow or meal flow crosses soiled return, waste movement, construction access, or uncontrolled visitor routes, the layout may be creating unnecessary operational risk. And this doesn't mean that every route must be perfectly isolated. It means that the team needs to see the crossings, decide what is acceptable, and build controls into the plan early. The fourth layout move is locating soiled utility, waste, laundry, and cleaning support for real use. These rooms are easy to treat as back of the house leftovers, but in care environments, they're operational anchors. If they're too far away, too small, poorly placed, or not aligned with the staff routes, the building creates workarounds. Equipment gets staged where it doesn't belong. Carts move through the wrong areas. Cleaning supplies end up stored informally. And a predictable layout gives these functions enough space, enough access, and a clear relationship to the routes that staff actually use. The fifth layout move is clarifying boundaries. Visitors, vendors, and service traffic, and construction traffic. They shouldn't travel through care areas simply because the plan failed to define a better path. This matters in normal operations, and it matters even more during occupied renovations. Boundaries can be physical, visual, operational, or procedural, but the layout has to support them. If the only thing keeping people out of the wrong place is a sign and hope, the boundary is weak. A stronger layout makes the intended path obvious. Step 3 is the peak moment and outbreak stress tests. We want to pick the moments when the building is under the most pressure. Things like med pass, meals, bathing, and laundry. Admissions, visitor arrival, shift change. Then test an outbreak or isolation event. What's moving? Where is the pinch point? What risk is created? What design or operating response is needed? This is where good layouts separate themselves from the calm day layouts. The question is not, does this work on paper? The question is, does this still work when the building is under pressure? If the project is an occupied renovation, add a renovation infection prevention check. Ask whether an ICRA is required or recommended. ICRA means the Infection Control Risk Assessment. In plain language, it's a process for identifying construction-related infection risks and defining controls before the work begins. Then, locate the temporary barriers. Define the construction worker routes, the material routes, the waste routes. Identify dust, noise, odor, vibration, and the water shutoff risks. Protect clean care zones and define the escalation path if controls fail during construction. Renovation infection prevention cannot be figured out after the phase starts. Now, use a go or no-go gate. A layout is ready to move forward only if the major infection risk pathways are mapped. Clean and soiled flows are separated or intentionally controlled. Hand hygiene and PPE support are placed where the work happens. Meds, meal, waste, laundry, visitor, and service paths have been tested during the peak moments. High-risk rooms and wet areas have early facilities and MEP review. Renovation controls are defined if applicable, and open risks are assigned with an owner and a due date. If an open issue could change walls, doors, adjacencies, MEP assumptions, or phasing, don't lock the layout yet. Now let's recap. Infection prevention by layout means that the building helps operations instead of forcing the staff to compensate. Use the IPLC worksheet and define the risk baseline. Map the infection risk pathways. Identify practical layout moves. Trace your clean and your soiled flows and test your peak moments. And then run the go, no-go gate before the layout lock. In the next video, we're going to look at the MEP reliability and the redundancy, where value engineering becomes an operations problem. Now, download the IPLC worksheet from the long-term care tools page. Hey, before you go, I want you to walk around your facility this week asking one question. What is the lesson that this space is teaching? The doorstops, the supplies at the nurse's station, the empty logbook that everybody walks past, the staff walking the long way around, and the families asking for directions. These aren't random. They're the lessons that the space has been teaching every day, every shift. Your staff didn't create that friction out of nowhere. And another reminder probably won't fix it. The facility friction roadmap lets you see your building the way that your staff are experiencing it. It shows you what spaces are teaching inefficiency, which are teaching workarounds, and gives you a practical place to start changing the lesson. It takes about 4 minutes. The link is in the description. Take the roadmap and find out what your spaces are teaching.